What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is because people get to know you, they get to see you.
Making those efficiencies to maximise service profits as well as just product profits.
When you lose the enthusiasm, that's the point to move on.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated, yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times. And only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk.
Hello, I'm Granger Forson, www.bizsmart-gloucestershire.co.uk, or find me on LinkedIn. This time on ScaleUp Radio, I speak with Ryan Anthoney, owner and CEO of Recharge Fitness Limited. Recharge Fitness is a business that sells gym equipment to the home enthusiast, personal trainers, the sports industry, and larger gyms. They've been operating for just over 3 years and are based in Gloucestershire. It is so interesting hearing Ryan's story of how he built his business with a very specific aim to make the UK more healthy. He developed his business idea when he was trying to build his own gym at home and has since turned it into a successful business that's now ready to scale. As always, we cover a lot of ground, including having a clear why for your business helps you to make strategic decisions. Build a business to have limited daily firefighting, which allows you to do the deep work each day. You are working for your team as much as they are working for you. And keep experimenting with your marketing until you find things that work. What is fascinating with this conversation with Ryan is that he's built multiple businesses, which has allowed him to understand how to seize an opportunity that he sees and to build a business around it. I know you'll get something out of this episode. So let's go over and hear from Ryan. Hello, Ryan Anthoney, and welcome to ScaleUp Radio podcast. Please introduce yourself and your business to us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, great to be here. So yeah, I am Ryan Anthoney. I am the CEO of Recharge Fitness. We're a gym equipment brand with a bit of a difference. So we do provide gym equipment to a range of B2C and B2B marketplace. But I think that difference for us is it's not just about supplying kit. It's about trying to make a positive change in terms of the UK's fitness market. And ultimately, we're trying to create a positive impact on the UK markets to get people healthier, to get people fitter, to help people grow in confidence. And I think that's one thing that's fairly unique to the fitness industry, certainly the gym equipment industry, is we've actually got a why. Most people are all about product. We're about product, but we actually have a bit of a meaning behind this and a bigger ambition, which is to create a healthier and fitter nation.
Wow. A product company with a why. So fitness, getting people fitter and feeling better about themselves. I very much like that. So let's talk a bit more about it. So how big are you? What's your, and maybe your range of equipment that you sell?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we've had 3 people, although actually we recently dropped down to 2. So a relatively small business. From a turnover perspective, do you want this information? I'm happy to share it.
Yeah, if you're happy to share it, go ahead.
Fairly open book. I mean, I'm sure, I'd like to think to a lot of people who view us as a brand, they think we're a much bigger business than we are, which I think is probably a bit of a compliment, and that's probably due to how we operate and how we portray ourselves. But yeah, we're fairly consistently around the 500,000 mark, but very much looking to scale up. And I like to think this is the year. So we've been going around 3 and a bit years now. Started pre-lockdown, which was excellent timing and terrible timing at the same time.
Yes.
So my background, I've always been interested in business, literally since I was a little boy, going around knocking on people's doors, asking if I can wash their cars, and then thought, how can I do this in a slightly better way? So I give them business cards. I ended up recruiting a team of young boys to go and do the washing, and I just take a bit of a profit off the top. So I think from a very young age, I've been, I guess, business minded. I do a lot of property development, and it was through building a luxury property and trying to build my own gym, I realized that I didn't have the foggiest. I didn't have a clue where to start. And I guess I've always had a passion for fitness. I've always had a passion for helping people get fitter. Not on a professional level by any means, but just like friends and family, I get a lot of enjoyment from seeing them lose 4 or 5 stone, increasing confidence. That's something that's always stayed with me. And I think I just got to that point where I was trying to build my own gym. I just didn't have a clue where to start. I think if I was a young teenage boy looking to lift his first weight and bought some sand-filled stuff from Argos, I would have been fine. If I was an absolutely humongous commercial gym and I was buying commercial gym kit, again, I'd be fine. But I wasn't. I was a guy that wanted to go fairly high-end and have good quality. I just didn't know where to look. And so I think it was really a mix of all of those things, from that unrelenting passion in the industry, being a businessman, and seeing a physical need to help people like myself at the time, which is kind of, really the catalyst for the business growth, or business launch, sorry.
Is it predominantly then business gyms that people are building at home, or do you also service people that are creating a gym that they will then, use?
Yeah, it's a combination of. So I think when we first launched, it was just about getting our name out there. And there was a very large market-led demand for home gym equipment. And that wasn't even necessarily doing full gyms within homes. It was actually people buying a pair of dumbbells or a barbell and some weight plates. It was quite small scale. And I think the pandemic had a huge it was a driver behind that. And actually, whilst I've always maintained that whole brand vision, the brand mission, which is to create a healthier and fitter nation, that's always been there since day one. But during the early stages, people just wanted to buy any kit. They actually didn't really care who the brand was, because there was such a short supply and a huge demand. So I think it was probably a little bit of that supply and demand that meant that we were just buying stuff for home. And then as the years and months have progressed, we've slowly started to do larger home kit outs, working with professional sports players. And then we started to pick up a few PT studios and small independent gyms. And then as each month's gone on, we've kind of scaled it slightly. So now we're doing a lot more work in the pure kind of B2B space with much larger, either chain gyms or ambitious independent gyms that are looking to add multiple units. So yeah, I'd probably say our revenue-wise, we've gone from maybe 99% at home in year one, maybe 95%, down to maybe like a 70-30 split, and then it's actually now inverted. So a lot of our revenues now coming more from commercial.
So as you've built the business, you've experimented, you've found different opportunities, and you've grown the business accordingly as the opportunity comes about, which is classic in terms of doing that. So how have you gone about finding those customers in terms of doing who are your target market? Because you've now got 2 targets. You've got the home gym and you've got the semi-professional gym, or...
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably add in there's 4 key audiences really that I see. So that the first is very much a B2C. It's your Joe Blogs at home that just wants to get a bit healthier, a bit fitter. The second audience is personal trainers. And I personally really like working with personal trainers because they are very good at what they do. Not all of them, but a lot of them are very good at what they do. They're very passionate, but they don't have a huge amount of background in business. So I like to work with them to help them set up their own personal training studios or launch their own gyms. So that's a really key audience for me. Another passion of mine is the sporting industry. Rugby is my main one, but we do a lot of work with pro and international rugby players, other sportsmen from various fields, from Prem footballers to cricketers to Olympians. That's definitely a big focus for us. And I think that then in turn helps the B2C market. When you work with a range of micro or macro influencers, they push the word out and then you pick up more business on the B2C side. And then finally, it is the B2B gyms. But probably industry-wise, I've kind of come into this industry without having worked in the industry. I've just been owner of multiple businesses and having a passion for fitness. I don't have a magic black book, which I think I've come to learn that a lot of people do when it comes to B2B. So we've really had to like almost organically earn the right to speak to these people, mix with a little bit of social advertising, just getting hopefully in front of the right people at the right time. Yeah. I think social media lead generation activity has been quite important for us, where we're invest money into some sort of data capture where people will fill out, say, I'm looking to add a new unit or refurb my gym. They send us information and we get on the phone and largely try and convert it.
And when it comes to the creation of a gym, do you just supply the equipment, or do you give advice in terms of, I don't know, flooring and lighting? Because I know you've got a background in construction, building properties. So it's interesting.
So it's a mixture actually. So some people will come to us with a very, very clear idea about what they want, and it might be that they've spoken to another gym equipment brand and have had a quote, and they're using us to price match or price beat. So they come and say, this is exactly what we want. And we can just be like almost an order taker and say, yeah, that looks good. Although actually you might need more of these and less of these. Have you considered this? So there's a little bit of consultation. Equally, we might get people at the complete other end where they say, I found a warehouse unit that is in a great catchment area. There's no gyms nearby. Help. And we say, brilliant. And then you're kind of into more of a dialogue, a consultation, and trying to work with them. And we will take it as far as they want to and let us take it. So we will do kind of complete designs from the ground up. Lighting is something that, just using that as a reference point, isn't something that we physically supply. However, I've got a few partners that we just recommend in that when it's right. It's not something that there's any financial exchange. We just want to make sure people get the best looking gyms possible. So we've got a few partners.
And what's the marketplace like for a gym equipment with the ability to also advise and mentor people? Is it a growing market? Is it a cutthroat market? Is it?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. So the market generally, if you look at kind of the UK as a whole, we've got a aging and ever increasingly heavy a nation, which is it's sad to see. It's a normal thing in kind of Western community. That's just what happens. But I think, our NHS is really fighting a bit of a losing battle there. And that's why it's a noble cause. But if I can get more people exercising, being mindful of their health, and when I'm talking health, I come at it from a physical perspective, but there's huge correlation between physical and mental. So I just want people to be fitter, which then benefits both those physical and mental side of things. So I think that the overall market is growing, but it is horrendously competitive. There's some really established brands, which, in my opinion, are there for the taking. And then there's lots of new entrants as well. So I think it is a very competitive marketplace. And that's why it's probably quite important for me to have a mission that I believe in, but also to have a bit of a why, because every single brand out there, probably with the exception of one or two, is just about selling gym equipment. Everything they create, all of their content, it's buy this is on sale. All of their messaging is all about product promotion, which has got a place, but you need to provide some value back. And that's why the way in which we operate, we aren't, if someone comes to us and says, I need this, this, and this, and we think, well, that's absolutely not relevant for your training goals, we would actively try and turn away a sale or reduce it. It just needs to be right for them and something they're actually going to do something with. I think the downside to that approach is positive is we generally help people and we do build quite strong advocacy for people that we've made a positive impact on. The downside is it's probably a little bit more labor intensive because we're not just saying, look, go on the website and buy something. It's more of a, well, what do you actually need? What are your goals? And we're taking it a step back. And we probably lengthen the sales process a little bit by doing that. But ultimately, I think that's the right thing to do. And I'm not in this for like a short-term buck. It's more about being there for the future and hopefully having a positive impact.
So let's just go back a little bit in terms of, before you started, you talked about other businesses that did. So what sort of experience and knowledge do you think that you had that was right at that moment in time when you went, yeah, there's a business model here that I can really get my teeth into?
Probably a mixture of two businesses. So actually at the time I was working as a managing director of a digital marketing agency. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably a fairly solid grounding if you want to launch a business, is you're going to need to create some sort of digital presence and drive people to your site and your brand. So I think that was very strong foundations, probably mixed with the fact that I had those personal troubles when trying to build my own gym. You're very rarely alone. And so I thought, if I've got this problem, other people have got this problem. So I felt like I had the strong foundations mixed with a genuine need from the marketplace.
Yeah.
And I think, those two things combined led to not only the idea, but the actual execution.
Yeah, and then that digital marketing experience is vitally important. Marketing is one of the key things for a business that wants to scale. And it's often the difference between a successful scaling business and not. So take us through some of your tactics. What's worked well? You talked about social. Give us some pointers and some thoughts.
Well, I'll actually be really, really honest to start with, is that I probably found on a personal level that I, over the years, had grown into someone that provides good strategic advice. I'm actually not a particularly good implementer. So that was a bit of a shock, actually. So that wasn't great news. I mean, I've done an okay job, but I don't necessarily have a design, as I say. Yeah. So I might know that we need to invest in these areas, but actually when it comes to, say, creating digital assets, I've put some ropey stuff out there, which we're trying to get better at. But I would say by no means I'm the expert. And actually, I've gone from managing big teams of people to create and execute very well. But actually, when it comes to that myself, it's not been as smooth.
But I bet it's been a good learning curve, though.
Yeah, sure. In terms of the tactics used, I think Facebook and Instagram have been fairly big for us. And I do a lot of things actually. As a new business, I've been kind of what I call like hand-to-hand combat stuff. So I've been listing things. I still do it now, where I list something on, say, Facebook Marketplace, which is like a really individual salesy sort of place, but it just gets so many eyes on. And if you're putting out a genuinely good product at a good price, there's no reason why people wouldn't buy. So I've been doing that type of thing just to drive a little bit of extra free exposure. And then socially, obviously, we're posting fairly frequently on both Instagram and Facebook. We'll also do a lot of paid and promoted ads to drive up the audience. I think using ambassadors of the brand has been important. So when we're working with, say, a professional rugby player or a professional fitness model or a high-level CrossFitter, if they ask us for let's just say it's £10,000 worth of kit or £5,000 worth of kit, we might give them, say, £500 off in exchange for them ideally doing like a testimonial or talking about the brand. And it's not something that we'll ever do on like a formal, we will give you this off if you do this. It's more a case of, look, we want you to really love us as a brand. If you like our products, it just helps us out if you talk about us. And I think that sort of approach is probably built stronger relationships with these micro influencers and these sports people, but equally they're then more willing to talk about us naturally.
Yeah.
I actually think that, using rugby players as an example, you'll do a job for one rugby player, they'll post something, they might not, but if they post something online, you then get another 3 or 4 rugby players say, oh, you've done this for this guy, I used to play with him, or I still play with him, how much would it be to do something for me? And slowly you've just suddenly worked with every team in the Premiership. And it's just quite nice to do that. But there might be that initial bit of outreach where we're going hand to hand to message them to say, oh, by the way, great game. How you ever thought about it in the gym? So it's quite hands-on and maybe a little bit uncomfortable because it's a very cold approach. But I think as long as you've got the brand behind you and you've got the confidence to do that and put yourself out there, the worst case, you're going to get probably a polite rejection. So just those are the key things, really.
And in terms of marketing, you talked about learn to be hands-on again in terms of doing that. Anything not worked?
So previous digital life, we worked with companies on really big, say, PPC budgets. That for me, it can be really effective, but it's also, you're paying quite a lot for the cost of someone's attention. Whereas for me, social media is still vastly underpriced. And so we've had a few like little goes at PPC, but I just can't quite make the numbers work, especially on the B2B side. It's a long nurturing process. It's quite scary to see hundreds or thousands of pounds going out each month and you're not really getting that direct return.
Yeah.
We've definitely actually tried a few kind of things that you're convinced at the time that it's going to completely change everything and you're going to be like inundated with requests, but actually it doesn't work. So like anything paper-based, where people are like, here's a 2-page spread, it's going to cost you a couple of £1,000, you're going to get this readership, and people read it and they put it in the bin and that's that done. And you're like, oh, we had like 2 sales and you've wasted loads of money. So there's been definitely a few lessons, but I think for me, digital is and always will be a key part of our strategy because you can just monitor it so carefully and generally it's ROI positive.
Yeah. Okay, so small business owner, you're growing. You got 3 employees. I think you said you're now back down to 2 employees. Yeah. So how do you manage your time not to feel overwhelmed by it all? Because there's always so much we want to do as business owners. I fully appreciate that, being one myself. How do you manage that? What's your tricks?
It's a challenge. It absolutely is a challenge. I think what I try to do, and I might be a little bit fortunate to be in this position, because I think a lot of business owners, especially businesses turning over under 500,000 a year, they need to be wearing many hats, and that's just a natural part and parcel of business. I rarely have the need. So if I say come into my office at 8:30, 9 o'clock, that I rarely need to firefight because there's not that many things that go drastically wrong. So I manage most days to put in an hour and a half to 2 hours of what I call like deep work and actually doing something constructive for the business before I then get into the day-to-day stuff. So I'll always make sure I'm doing something that drives the business forward. I'm probably overplaying that. I do it most days. That's certainly my goal. There are times obviously it doesn't happen, but generally speaking, I'll get some deep work done and do something that takes the business forward, even if it's by 0.1%, as long as I'm just making progress. And I think progress over perfection is a key thing for me, because there's always that temptation to not do something because it's not perfect. But actually, as a small business, people don't analyze you like you analyze yourself. You just need to get on and do things.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Now, and interesting, you say you have limited firefighting. Why would you think that you have limited firefighting?
There's not that much that can go wrong, realistically, with gym equipment. Certainly not the things that we do. And there's someone else in the team that manages more the customer service side. I think there have been some really big firefighting actually elements, but that's probably back when we were in peak lockdown. And the reason being is we couldn't keep up with demand. You don't want to turn down orders, so you end up pre-selling things. With any pre-sales, people have expectations of dates, and then you're reliant on a ship line being on time, which they absolutely are never on time. And you say to them, sorry, it's been pushed back 2 weeks. Even if it's been pushed back a week, you say 2 weeks to build yourself contingency. And then you get 2 weeks in and out of nowhere, it's like, it's another 2 weeks. And that's less good. That's something where you need to be like really transparent and apologetic. And it's just a case of, let's just ring up as many people as possible and be really sincere and say sorry many times and hope for the best. But people maybe lose a bit of trust if you actually don't deliver, not only on the first date, but the second date, because people don't really care why it's late. All they know is that they bought it from you and it's late. Yeah. So I've tried to, make decisions as a business to move away from pre-sales because it leaves you very exposed. And also in terms of the kit that we provide, so cardio equipment, when we're doing commercial gyms, we used to bring in our own cardio kit. When it went wrong, and cardio kit does go wrong, we were quite exposed operationally, because we might have someone that says, and it might be a small issue, but you might need to drive up to Scotland to fix someone's air bike and then drive down to Cornwall to do something else. And we're just operationally not set up for that.
Yeah.
So we made the decision to partner with a big global but UK-based firm on all of our cardio kit. Just to, if there was that firefighting moment, actually we don't need to deal with it. It's bringing the experts that have got 2,000, 3,000 employees and they're equipped doing it. We're not.
What I was wondering there, and it definitely came out, is actually you're planning for the type of issues so you don't have the firefighting, designing the processes and the systems in the business and the structure to allow that firefighting not to come to your door in terms of doing stuff. So, yeah very good. Very good.
It's a weird one, actually. So as a business, I've always tried to build something for the future. And it isn't where I want it to be today. I want to be turning over 3, 4, 5 million a year, 25% profit. It's not there. But I'm trying to make decisions now, whether that decision is back during lockdown when we could have added 50% to our prices. We didn't because we wanted to build that advocacy. We wanted people to respect us for that. Or it might be now when I'm looking at our kind of how we manage the business. I'm creating documentations and workflows that will work when we've got 5 people or 10 people in the business. Even though I don't need to do it now because it's only me that uses that, I want to document it in a way that people can follow that. So it really is like it's focusing on the future and just hoping that we continue on the path together.
Excellent. So we talked about employees. So how do you find the right people to bring into your business today then?
I'm probably not the right person for this specific business. And I've got a business where we've brought in really good people. We had someone that we actually hired to kind of help them out, but it backfired a little bit. Had a few issues which have been emotionally a little bit painful. But it's just something I think, we've consolidated a bit to then, get the foundations for the future. But I think we had a hire that just things went down a bit of a wrong path. And it caused us a few challenges, but we've learned from it.
And interesting, could you share what you've learned?
I'd say don't hire personal. It was actually a loose friend through my business partner on this one who said, look, there's a lad I played football with back in the day. He's looking for a job. Bring him in. I was like, we need an extra pair of hands. Let's bring them in. But then they probably took on more and more. But then there were things started to go wrong a little bit, and then it ended up a little bit sour. So I think a lesson learned. I really genuinely wish the guy the best. But equally, need to plan for the future.
So hiring is really important, and maintaining the culture. So do you do things to keep the culture of the team?
Yeah, I mean, realistically and being honestly, no, because it's a very small team of 2 driven people right now.
Yeah. But
moving forward, absolutely. And the way I've always done that in the past, and even as we speak, I've got a fair few other businesses, some with a lot more people. It's just about treating people like decent people, and they're employees, but you're working for them. So it's about making sure that their day-to-day is as rewarding as it can be, not just financially, but just in terms of day-to-day enjoyment, and making sure that I like to just kind of share the overall business vision and always kind of drive back to that key point, because everything that they do adds up to that. And that's why when we're dealing with a tricky customer that literally doesn't have a clue what they want gym-wise, and it could be a really long 2-hour phone call back and forth over a number of weeks rather than it just being a very simple sale, we're doing it because we want to help people. So I think, letting people make sure they feel a part of the business and the mission, and they're actually a key role in making that happen. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. I love that phrase you said, you're working for them as much as they're working for you. I thought that was a brilliant.
Well, I'm sure I've copied that from someone else, so don't quote me on that.
No, don't matter. It doesn't matter. I think that's excellent, because that's so true. It is a very important part of the culture in any business, of realising that as a leader. So, and sharing the business vision is really important, because that helps that alignment. I totally agree in terms of that. So, Cash is king. Cash is important in any business. How do you manage cash and the finance of the business to make it successful?
Yeah, I mean, you've asked me 2 questions now in a row where I'm very happy to be transparent, but they probably reflect quite badly. So I think on the employee side, we had a bit of a mess up, a lesson learned. On the cash flow side, as a business, we have never been in a better and a worse place. So we've invested quite heavily in things like creating a showroom for the gym, which is needed because we're doing more and more B2B stuff. People want to have meetings and we want to take them to like a nice looking location. They can see some of the kit. We've invested in quite a few things. Equally, as we've been doing more B2B stuff, we used to say and I think our average order was £467 or something last year. This year, it's a hell of a lot higher because we're doing more of the B2B stuff. But if someone puts in a £40,000 or an £80,000 order, that's sucking up all of our funds. So we've got a lot of business now, probably £450,000 currently quoted, which is similar to like an annual turnover. But in terms of fulfilling that, what we found is when we're then doing the B2B side, the B2C side suffering because we then don't have everything in the stock because all of our cash flow is on this B2B order, which we need to wait 8 weeks for it to arrive. And it's a bit cyclical, so we do really well. Then we'll be like, we haven't got the cash flow to then invest in the kit that we need to keep the B2C side happy. So yes, it's certainly been a challenge, and that's probably been the biggest learning for me. Not in that cash is king, because realistically, I knew that before, but actually, it's trying to get external investment isn't something that I've ever explored, and it's something that I think we need as a business to push on. And whilst I do believe we've got incredible foundations, a great database, loads of advocates, loads of really influential people that are behind the business, we also don't have a huge amount of funds to reinvest back into the business that actually help us achieve these growth ambitions. So it's been a bit of an interesting one for me and a learning curve in terms of how do you approach someone that you don't know to say, hi, I've got a business, it's really good, can I have some money? It's just not a natural conversation for me because apart from various property mortgages, I've always been very cautious about borrowing money. Yeah. And two, I probably don't have the context to be approaching. And actually the contacts I do, so when I'm working with professional footballers and rugby players that have said to me they're interested in investing, and they've approached me, because I've got a bit of a personal relationship there, and some of these are my friends, I feel really uncomfortable about them being involved in the business. I almost want the investor to be someone that can maybe drive a little bit of business value, but to be like a hard-nosed businessman to say, look, this is what I'm going to give you, this is what I expect, this is where I want the business to go, rather than someone just saying, look, I want to do you a favour, here's 50 grand or 100 grand.
And is that then your sort of statement around we're ready to scale? Actually, the next part of scaling is around maybe finding that investor to help you then have the product on the shelf.
Yeah, definitely think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in terms of those leads, like we have genuinely never had anywhere near as much business in the pipeline, of which I expect quite a lot of it to convert. All that is almost pre-qualified quotes where people are saying that we're really keen.
Yeah,
but we just can't fulfill it right now. And the amount of times is daily where I'll get someone that on a smaller scale, we might have, say, a £2,500 budget, and we've got 85%, 90% of the kit, but there's 10% that we don't have in stock.
Yeah.
And they go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's, yes, it's frustrating, but I completely get it from a consumer perspective. But the only real way for us to get there is probably to get this investment. So that is something I've actively been starting to look at. And it's obviously, you'll know more than me, but the whole EIS scheme is pretty impressive. So yeah, I definitely think that's something that we want to explore more.
Okay, a couple more questions. So let's just talk about the industry a bit. What drives you crazy about the industry? If you could have a magic wand, what would you do?
This is a two-part answer. I think one's probably like a more holistic thing, which is the fitness industry as a whole. And then my second answer would be more around the gym equipment industry and some other challenges. So I think fitness industry wise, it's not creating false expectations. So I day in, day out, and I'm in fairly good physical shape. I'm by no means like a cover model shape, but I'm in decent nick. People look and go, he's athletic. There are so many people online posting pictures daily where they've just got unattainable abs and muscles, or there's women with bum implants. It's not attainable for the average person. And then there's two factors. One is genetics, and genetics is genetics. You can't really affect that. It just creates a lot of pressure, I think, certainly on teenagers, early 20s, about trying to have this like perfect body that it just isn't going to be attainable for them. So you've got guys that probably, I know it's factually, are very heavily on steroids, putting out pictures that your everyday person can't achieve. And then you might have that 1% that's really genetically gifted. Unless you're also in that 1%, you're just never going to get there. And I think that creates a lot of pressure, a lot of mental well-being challenges for people. It also means that people don't necessarily have that resilience to continue on working out and eating well, because they're not looking like they want to look like, but they're never going to. But it doesn't mean they're not a lot more healthy, and doesn't mean they haven't progressed a lot. So that's a bit of a bugbear. I also think you get a lot of, say, bodybuilding, both male and female, that understandably they get into a phenomenal shape that isn't even healthy. They get such a low body fat, but then they will push out those pictures throughout the course of the year. And that isn't necessarily a reflection of them as a person at any point in their current point in time. They naturally go up in body weight. People gain fat. That's normal. Don't worry about it. If you've gained a bit too much fat, just get back on it. It's a natural flow. It should be cyclical. That's not a problem. But people have that expectation to just look phenomenal all year round, and it's just it's damaging to some people. So that's kind of a bit of a bugbear. And what we try to do is Recharge is celebrate people that look like that because they work very hard, but also celebrate your normal people. Celebrate someone that's 25% of the way into their journey. They're not where they want to be, but they've progressed. That's the main thing. It's about you comparing against you. It's about you getting better. So that's one bugbear. From a gym equipment perspective, the biggest challenge we always have is the courier side of things from the ships. A lot of our stock, not all of it, but a lot of our stock does come from China. The shipping process is an absolute nightmare, and it drives me mad in that you just can't get any clarity around when things will arrive. But then when they are late, you then get an extra surcharge for them being late, which is madness. And then from a UK perspective, we wrap things very, very well to ensure they get there safely. Sometimes certain couriers handle goods in a very poor way, in a concerning way.
Yeah.
And we also get extra charges left, right, and centre, where we might say send out a pair of 20 kilogram dumbbells. So they send out as a pair, they're 40 kilograms, is 20 times 2. Now we know it's 40 kilograms because we're selling weights, and they've actually got the weights written on them. We get an invoice in saying a surcharge of £44 or something because you sent something out that was 100 kilograms. And we're like, well, it wasn't, because we know how much they weigh, but we're just constantly getting those. And unless you've got your head into the detail, you get stung a lot in unfair ways.
Right.
And that's something that every week I'll find 2 to 3 things that aren't quite right. And yeah, it's just frustrating having to even look at that. It should just be a case of just invoice us what we do and fine.
Okay. So last question then, in terms of if we were to meet in 5 years' time and we're looking back over the last 5 years, what's happened both professionally and personally for you to call the 5 years a success?
So almost immediately at the point you put this podcast live, we're going to be inundated with investors saying, this sounds like a great business. Here's some money. We'll benefit from the EIS and we're going to help take this business forward. No, I think, on a personal level, so I've got one little boy who's 2.5. We've got another on the way due fairly soon. So that's exciting.
Congratulations.
Yeah, very, very fun, but also very scary. So I need to kind of negotiate that without letting business slip, which I'm sure will be fine. What I've managed to do with some of my businesses is have like teams of say 15, 20 people that's running a self-managing way. Recharge at the minute requires me a lot. I'd love to get to a place where it's turning over, say, 2.5 million a year, very profitable, but I'm involved on a strategic level, going into the office a couple of times a week and helping ensure that all the staff are happy and working towards that vision and having more strategic value rather than being involved as much in the day-to-day.
Yeah.
But that absolutely is a fair few years off, so we need to earn the right to do that. The other thing I guess I'd like to see with Recharge is providing that the profitability is there, which I'm sure it would be if we hit those numbers, is making sure actually we are living out our mission. It's all about helping people. So we're running activities. So we helped this lad, we saw him over in Tanzania, a young PT. He training like 45 of these locals in a really, really poor area. So we worked with him and basically gave him a free gym. But that sort of thing is so rewarding. He'll always tag us in stuff now online, just showing us him working out all of the local villages. And I want to do more and more of that. But it's commercial suicide if you do that every month. So I think, it's a balance and making sure the financials are there, but continue to do the good work that we're doing, but on a larger scale.
Yeah.
We have had campaigns that have been great. So I'm really keen to keep doing that.
Brilliant. Well, Ryan, fantastic conversation today, talking about how you have a business with a real positive direction in terms of what you want to do, which is getting the UK fit and helping them grow and developing that through equipment that they can put into their gyms, into their home gyms, into growing things, and having that real focus in terms of doing stuff. But your background in terms of, running businesses before you even started this, in terms of that, and we can see how that's played out in terms of your thinking around marketing, thinking about the people, thinking about cash. Yes, we all make mistakes as we go along, but the most important thing is we learn from mistakes, and you've definitely demonstrated that so well in terms of doing that. And I love the vision for your future in terms of what you're trying to do. And more importantly, I love that expression that you said, you're working for your people as much as they're working for you. And I think that's really, really powerful in terms of doing that. And the next steps is around investment to help, having the cash to be able to grow that you need to do in terms of doing things. So thank you very much. We finished with a quick fire round. If you went back to the younger you, what advice would you give yourself?
Probably two key things. I think one thing that I've come to realize is 99.9% of people have ideas, but that 0.01% actually do anything about it. So take well-informed risks, but actually just put yourself out there. Just do it. If you've got a passion for something, you believe in it, give it a go. The worst case is you get learnings from it. So I think, almost do what I have done is put yourself out there, work hard, and try and make things happen. I think that the second thing would be just get some really good, strong people around you, people that give you energy. And that's not necessarily purely from a work perspective, but just generally, if you spend time with a core of 5, 6, 7, 10 people, make sure they're people that you enjoy spending time with and that give you energy. Then there's nothing worse when you're, say, going into a working environment or a life environment and then you're working with someone that takes energy away. That's quite a dangerous place to be, because that energy is what is going to drive you forward.
Which books do you recommend?
I've read quite a few, personal development, businessy books. I think the one that I go back to and have read multiple times, because I do, if I'm honest, I generally read once, put it down, recall maybe 10% of it, but that's kind of that done. But there's a guy called, I think his name is James Clear, Atomic Habits. That's one that has stuck with me and I've read a few times, and I try to read it once a year because it's more about making small changes. I'll give you one case in point, and I don't know if you've been here, Granger, but I'll get into bed, or used to get into bed. My wife would be next to me and I'll look at my phone for 20 minutes. That's not really a good, healthy behavior. So what I'll do now is I'll charge my phone in a different room, or if I'm being completely honest, the far side of my current room where I can't reach it from the bed. Yeah. And then equally in the morning, the alarm goes off, you get up straight away and you're out of bed, rather than I'll never, ever hit that snooze button. But I think it's those small atomic behaviors that ladder up to making you much more productive, happy, whatever it is as a person. Brilliant. So definitely recommend giving that a read.
And I totally agree. Interestingly, I finished reading it only last week.
Oh, did you?
And I'm already rereading it.
Have you made any changes?
I have, yes. I have a passion to be able to bend over and touch my toes again. I'm in my 50s, so and I won't say where I've applied his habit stacking, but I have applied his habit stacking. So anyway, right, which podcast do you recommend?
I listen to a few podcasts. Some are more actually from an enjoyment perspective. Others are more, educational. I think Gary Vaynerchuk is someone that I've always been motivated by. He does say a lot of the same stuff, but actually I think that's the same stuff you need to hear.
Yeah.
And he's, some people view him as repetitive. He is repetitive, but he's repeating a really important message or series of messages. So yeah, he's definitely someone that if I ever, and it's fairly rare, but if I ever wake up and don't feel at 100%, I'll go for a little jog, listen to a couple of his podcasts, and suddenly I'm fired up and full of ideas. So yeah, definitely say Gary Vaynerchuk's one for me. Tim Ferriss is another one, but I think, yeah, Gary's the one that I probably get the most reward from.
Okay. Onto your mobile phone now, even though you've put it away at the end of the night. What apps on your phone do you think adds the most difference for you?
Oh, I've got a series of apps. I mean, it's probably a difference in terms of productivity and where I spend most of my time. Although actually, I could say like social media stuff it genuinely is really important for my business or businesses. I've got a lot of reporting tools on there as well. So I own a farm shop just down the road, and I constantly just looking at that to see like the sales coming in. It's just quite fascinating to see in real time what's coming in because it's obviously so frequent. Yeah, I think those are obviously your functional apps like your Gmails and stuff, but I wouldn't say I've got any magic app that is just mind-blowing. I think it's the run-of-the-mill standard stuff, really.
Okay, brilliant. My favourite question of all, who's had the most influence on you as a business leader?
Yeah, good question. There's probably been a couple of people, but it'd probably be fair to give it to my wife. So she's done very well. So she started a business probably about 8 years ago, her and one other, and they've grown that to around 130, 140 people. And she is the least professional business person you'll ever meet. So she'll be in like a boardroom. She's got a very short attention span and she'll start doing press ups. She's a very strange but amazing woman. I think I've probably learned a lot of things from her in terms of bigger picture thinking, because she doesn't conform to the normal kind of way of working or thinking. She kind of does her own thing, but actually people really respect her and love her for just having a personality and not being what you'd expect in a big corporate environment. She's just very much herself. So I think, yeah, backing yourself really to be you and express yourself however you want to express yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And finally, how can people get hold of you?
If they want to get hold of me personally to talk about anything business related, then LinkedIn. So Ryan Anthony, which is Anthoney. But yeah, from a Recharge perspective, either drop me a message on ryan@rechargefitness.co.uk, go on the website, which is www. I don't know if that was too many W's, rechargefitness.co.uk, or on any social media. So Instagram is recharge_fit. But yeah, do just drop us a message.
Well, Ryan, thank you very much for this lovely conversation today. I've really enjoyed it and some great takeaways for our audience.
Man, it was lovely to chat to you. And yeah, it's quite cathartic talking about, I guess, some of my concerns with the industry and those naughty couriers.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.